fight, yeah. For boxers his level, yes.
Meaning what? Not your level?
I do not believe so, no, not at all.
Mike Tyson has fired back hard at Jake Paul following Jake's recent comments about the controversial events of November 15. Paul not only accused Tyson of participating in a rigged fight but also claimed the former heavyweight champ returned to the ring out of financial desperation. These remarks quickly stirred up outrage across the boxing world, with fans and analysts alike criticizing Paul for his blatant disrespect. Known for his unfiltered intensity, Tyson didn't hold back in his response. He slammed Paul for questioning his integrity, making it clear that his return to the ring was driven by a deep love for the sport, not money. Tyson emphasized that he's never fought for a paycheck, but for passion and competition. His fiery rebuttal has escalated the feud, adding even more tension to an already heated rivalry, and fans are now more eager than ever to see how this dramatic saga plays out.
I've always been in the gym training. I'm in boxing, professional fighters. I'm just, activity is great. I had 15 fights in 1 year when I was younger, and I think activity is great, but I'm prepared.
The idea that a global icon like Mike Tyson would be begging a YouTuber for cash? Come on, let's get real. Does Jake Paul even understand the fundamentals of boxing, or is he just improvising his way through this? At this point, it's painfully clear that Jake has little grasp of what he's saying. His entire boxing persona has been crafted around social media buzz, flashy marketing, and carefully selected opponents who fit his narrative. But when it comes to honoring the true legends of the sport, he falls drastically short. Jake's recent comments about Tyson aren't just disrespectful, they expose a glaring ignorance of everything Tyson represents. This is a man who carved out his legacy through grit, sacrifice, and undeniable talent. Jake, on the other hand, seems to think that an online following gives him the right to take shots at one of the most iconic and feared fighters in boxing history without consequences. But here's the reality: Mike Tyson isn't just another name in the ring. He's a living symbol of raw power, discipline, and an era when boxing was fueled by heart, not hashtags. And now, Jake's reckless words have provoked something he might not be ready for. Tyson's response wasn't just a comeback, it was a clear warning: real fighters don't need online antics to prove their worth. Let's be honest, the Tyson vs. Paul matchup was the fight nobody truly asked for, yet everyone couldn't look away. It was a spectacle, a cultural clash between two worlds, one built on decades of ring dominance, the other on viral fame. And while Jake may believe he's untouchable, he's quickly discovering that poking a legend comes with a steep price.
Tyson is getting back in the ring. He's 58 years old. He's facing off against YouTuber turned boxer, 27-year-old Jake.
When word got out that 57-year-old Mike Tyson would be stepping into the ring against 27-year-old Jake Paul, the internet didn't just react, it erupted. Was this a real fight or just the strangest midlife crisis on record? Social media lit up with memes, skepticism, and fiery takes. Some fans were intrigued, others confused, and many critics dismissed it outright as a sideshow before the gloves even went on. But the biggest issue wasn't the 30-year age gap. It was the glaring contrast in legacy, experience, and reverence for the sport. On one side, Mike Tyson, the baddest man on the planet, a former undisputed heavyweight champion whose name still sends chills down spines. He's a walking chapter of boxing history, feared in his prime for his ruthless power and unmatched ferocity. On the other side? Jake Paul, a YouTuber turned boxer who's made his mark less through grit and grind, and more through algorithms, controversy, and hand-picked opponents. While Jake's got a decent right hand and an undeniable knack for self-promotion, his rise has been more about spectacle than substance. The matchup felt less like a clash of titans and more like pouring vintage whiskey into a plastic cup. Then Jake made things worse, with his most ridiculous claim yet, that Tyson took the fight out of financial desperation. Really, Jake? This is the same Mike Tyson who's built a multi-million-dollar cannabis empire, starred in films and shows, and launched a slew of successful business ventures. If anything, Tyson's couch change probably outweighs your crypto wallet. Suggesting he needed the fight wasn't just inaccurate, it was downright insulting. Fans and boxing purists alike were quick to call out the disrespect. Tyson's legacy has nothing to do with desperation. It's built on dominance inside the ring, resilience through life's darkest moments, and an uncanny ability to evolve and stay relevant through generations. He's not chasing checks. He's already cemented a legacy that money can't touch. Jake Paul may know how to stir the pot and steal headlines, but Mike Tyson made history. And there's a big difference between going viral and being legendary.
Jake Paul, a social media personality turned boxer whose greatest weapon is his ability to trend on Twitter.
Just as the buzz around the Tyson-Paul fight began to die down, a bombshell hit the internet, a so-called script leak that reignited the controversy in full force. And this wasn't your typical anonymous Reddit theory. It was a round-by-round breakdown, disturbingly detailed and oddly convincing. Unlike vague predictions or fan speculation, this leak read like a screenplay, complete with pacing, turning points, and a dramatic arc. According to the alleged script, Tyson would come out aggressive, using his trademark bob and weave to dominate the early rounds and remind the world of the ferocity that once defined him. Jake, meanwhile, would play it safe, maintaining distance, soaking up the early pressure, and gradually finding his rhythm like a composed, tactical fighter. Then came the dramatic pivot. By round 5, Tyson was supposedly scripted to hit the canvas after a perfectly timed right hook from Jake. It sounded more like a blockbuster film than a boxing match. A classic underdog moment, timed perfectly to stir emotion and capture headlines. The script even mentioned Tyson showing visible signs of fatigue, Jake growing in confidence, and the fight ending in controversial fashion to keep fans debating long after the final bell. What shocked people most was how closely the actual fight mirrored the script. Tyson looked slower, more sluggish than expected, while Jake landed crisp, well-timed shots with unsettling precision. Even seemingly minor details, like a predicted cut above Tyson's eye, came true. It wasn't just the big-picture moments that aligned, it was the granular, subtle touches that made the script feel less like fiction and more like a blueprint. As the fight progressed, what should have been an electrifying spectacle started to feel like a choreographed performance. Whispers rippled through the crowd, online forums exploded with suspicion, and the atmosphere shifted from excitement to doubt. Had fans just watched a genuine contest? Or an elaborate, WWE-style production tailored to generate maximum clicks, controversy, and cash? The boxing world quickly split into camps, some dismissing the script as coincidence, others convinced it was damning evidence of a rigged event. Either way, the leak cast a long, uncomfortable shadow over the match, blurring the lines between sport and spectacle and raising unsettling questions about the authenticity of modern boxing in an age driven by algorithms, view counts, and viral moments.
There is an alleged script leak. This has not been confirmed. Take it with a grain of salt. No one knows if this is real.
Meanwhile, Tyson's response, or lack thereof, was deafening. No passionate denials, no fiery interviews, no rush to shut down the swirling rumors. For a man known for wearing his heart on his sleeve and never shying away from confrontation, his silence was louder than words. It was as if he chose to watch from the sidelines, letting the internet chew on every detail of the now infamous script leak. Some believed Tyson saw the claims as too absurd to dignify with a response. Others suspected he was quietly working behind the scenes, calculating his next move or perhaps investigating how such a leak even happened. If there was a strict non-disclosure clause in play, someone had clearly crossed a line, and Tyson, despite his outward calm, is not the type to take betrayal lightly. While Tyson stayed tight-lipped, Jake Paul did the opposite. True to form, he couldn't resist fanning the flames. Rather than denying the rumors or attempting damage control, he leaned into the chaos. On his podcast, he casually dropped a claim that stunned fans. He had eased off during the fight to avoid seriously hurting Tyson. Yes, that Mike Tyson, the former undisputed heavyweight champion, the man who used to knock out elite opponents in seconds. The comment landed like a grenade. The backlash was instant. Fans, pundits, and fighters across the spectrum were floored by the arrogance. Was Jake seriously suggesting he was the real threat in that ring? That he had to pull his punches out of some twisted sense of mercy or respect? It was either a poor attempt at spin, a veiled admission the fight wasn't on the level, or a jaw-dropping display of ego. Either way, he had just poured gasoline on an already raging fire. At this point, the Tyson-Paul fight had morphed into something far bigger and messier than anyone anticipated. What started as an oddball crossover event between a boxing icon and a viral provocateur had spiraled into full-blown controversy. The match itself was no longer the focal point. Now, the narrative was consumed by suspicion, conspiracy, and confusion. Had fans just watched a real contest or unknowingly bought front row seats to one of the biggest PR stunts in combat sports history? One thing was clear: whatever the truth behind the punches, the Tyson-Paul saga had cemented its place in the boxing world not as a classic bout, but as a cautionary tale of spectacle over substance. And it's a story that fans will be debating for years to come.
Love Mike, and despite what he said in that interview with the girl about the legacy, we love him and his legacy.
Mike Tyson's patience finally wore thin quicker than Jake Paul could call himself a legitimate boxer. After weeks of staying quiet amid rigging accusations and watching the so-called fight script go viral, Tyson decided it was time to speak up. But this time, it wasn't with his fists, it was with fire. In a no-nonsense interview with Fox Sports Radio, the former heavyweight champ shut the rumors down cold. He didn't just deny the fight was staged, he practically growled his response, daring anyone to suggest that taking 78 punches to the face was all part of some elaborate act. Tyson made it brutally clear: the fight was real, and the pain was even more real. This wasn't just a casual rebuttal, it was a controlled explosion. Tyson wasn't brushing off the allegations, he was livid. His message? You don't fake waking up feeling like you've been hit by a freight train. And you definitely don't choreograph the kind of punishment he took in that ring.
Exactly. I started to, matter of fact, thank you. I started Jake Paul off.
This wasn't just about the bruises or the toll of 78 punches, Tyson's real anger ran deeper. The rigging rumors weren't just questioning the fight, they were chipping away at the legacy he spent a lifetime building. For Tyson, it wasn't an insult, it was a full-blown sucker punch to his reputation, the kind that hits harder than anything thrown in the ring. His legendary status now carried a shadow, all because of a so-called leaked script that read more like a bad Rocky reboot than reality. Behind closed doors, the tension thickened. Whispers began circulating about a possible non-disclosure agreement and NDA reportedly tied to the bout, the kind that comes wrapped in heavy legal threats and bold-lettered warnings. If such a document existed, it would have been designed to keep any talk of staging or scripted outcomes strictly off limits. And then Jake Paul did what Jake Paul does: he opened his mouth. On his podcast, he casually claimed he eased off during the fight, implying he went easy on Mike Tyson, as if he were offering mercy to a man who once dismantled champions in under a minute. It wasn't just arrogant, it was potentially a direct violation of that rumored NDA. Sources say Tyson wasn't just annoyed, he was livid. If the NDA was real, Jake may have crossed a legal and personal line wider than one of Tyson's signature hooks. But even beyond contracts and fine print, Tyson's fury came down to one thing: protecting his name. His legacy isn't just about knockouts, it's about grit, survival, and authenticity. And Jake Paul, in Tyson's eyes, was cheapening all of it for views, for clout, for content. This wasn't just a PR mess, it was personal. And Tyson, a man who fought his way to icon status, wasn't about to let a YouTuber turned boxer smear that with a microphone and a hot take.
My life is a legacy. Legacy to me means ego. Who the is about my legacy? I'm gonna be dead soon one day, but he's not gonna.
The fight itself only added fuel to the fire. Statistically, Jake Paul dominated, landing 78 punches to Tyson's meager 18. On paper, it looked like a one-sided clinic. But there was one problem: this was Mike Tyson, a man who once dismantled world-class fighters with half that output on an off night. Watching him struggle to connect clean shots felt surreal, like watching Superman get pinned by SpongeBob. Yet ringside footage painted a different picture. From the crowd's perspective, the punches looked punishing and painfully real. Tyson didn't resemble someone going through the motions of a scripted act, he looked like a warrior trapped in the shell of a legend, battling not just Jake, but time itself. His once feared bob and weave had slowed to a labored shuffle, and his punches landed with all the urgency of a buffering video. Even Tyson admitted something was wrong, later confessing he had mentally blacked out during the bout. That single admission cracked the door open to a flood of new questions. Was it fatigue? Age? Something more serious no one saw coming? Whatever the cause, one thing was clear: his sluggish performance didn't kill the conspiracy, it gave it new legs. Still, the most likely explanation was the simplest one. Not a script. Not sabotage. Just time unforgiving, undefeated, and always waiting at the edge of the ring.
Welcome back to the Pain Game. Today we're going to talk Darren Till versus Tommy Fury / John Fury, of course. But first, some more important and quite serious news in the combat sports world. Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul, it's come out now. It was rigged. I can't believe it. You know, you have to question the validity of boxing these days when you can't trust two professionals to get in the ring and do their best against each other. And instead you find out Mike Tyson pulling his punches, not trying to hurt Jake Paul. Absolute disgrace. I thought better of them. You know, I really did. I thought that Mike Tyson, especially, Iron Mike, he was just going to go in there and knock Jake clean out. But here he is, not trying. I'm so disappointed in him. But you don't need to take it from me.
Then came the aggression, and it was impossible to ignore. Ringside analysts quickly picked up on something different about Jake Paul. Gone was the flashy, showboating YouTuber from earlier bouts. This version of Jake was sharp, relentless, and throwing punches with real venom. His focus was laser-tight, his combinations crisp, and his right hand carried weight that demanded respect. He wasn't in there to play the role of internet celebrity turned boxer. He was there to take over. At one point, he even opened a cut above Tyson's height, a shocking moment that sent a ripple of disbelief through the crowd. It wasn't just the blood, it was the symbolism. Seeing a living legend like Tyson visibly hurt by someone still fighting for respect felt surreal. Jake's intensity wasn't theatrical, it was desperate. Every punch looked like it carried more than muscle, it carried a mission. It was no longer about winning. It was about belonging. This wasn't the Jake Paul who grinned for cameras. This was a fighter burning to prove he was more than a viral headline. And at the center of it all, as always with Jake, was money. In true Jake Paul fashion, he couldn't leave well enough alone. After the fight, he returned to his podcast and dropped another bombshell. According to him, Tyson had approached him out of financial desperation. Jake painted the entire event as a payday for a fading legend, suggesting Tyson needed the money more than the fight. The audacity of it hit like a sucker punch. This was Jake Paul, whose career was built on spectacle and clout chasing, accusing Mike Tyson, a man whose name is synonymous with boxing greatness, of selling out for a check. The backlash was immediate. Fans and fighters alike were furious, not just at the insult, but at the ignorance behind it. Because for Tyson, boxing isn't about the paycheck, it's in his DNA. It's his history, his therapy, his war zone, and his redemption all rolled into one. Jake's claim didn't just add controversy. It reignited it. Now, the story wasn't just about who landed more punches. It was about who belonged in that ring, and why they were there in the first place. What started as a crossover fight had exploded into a cultural flashpoint where pride, legacy, and profit collided under the spotlight. And the Tyson-Paul saga? It was no longer just about. It was a battle for credibility in a sport that doesn't hand it out easily.
But that changed when Paul clenched with Tyson. It's alleged he whispered into Tyson's ear to cool.
And then there's the juicy pay-per-view, PPV, controversy, the one no one in the fight game can stop whispering about. Word is both fighters walked away with hefty seven-figure payouts. But behind the scenes? Rumors swirled that Mike Tyson might have felt shortchanged. If Jake Paul cashed in more thanks to his massive online following, it would have been the ultimate slap in the face, adding financial insult to Tyson's already bruised pride. Think about it, you spend decades carving out one of the most fearsome legacies in boxing history, only to get out-earned by a guy whose rise to fame involved viral pranks and influencer beef. Brutal. The bigger question is, was Tyson's return to the ring a smart business decision or a desperate attempt to chase faded glory? Some believe he simply wanted one last moment in the spotlight before bowing out, a chance to remind the world he could still throw hands at 57. But stepping into the ring with Jake Paul wasn't just bold, it bordered on reckless. It was like a battle-hardened lion stepping back into the jungle, only to be ambushed by a loudmouth hyena who'd been training for this very moment. Maybe Tyson thought it would be a quick payday. What he didn't expect was how far Jake would go or how seriously he'd take it. Social media, of course, went nuclear. Jake was dragged for allegedly disrespecting Tyson, accused of weaponizing the fight for clicks while tarnishing the reputation of a boxing icon. Memes exploded, threads ran wild, and comments sections turned into digital war zones. In the court of public opinion, Jake wasn't just playing the heel, he became the undisputed final boss of boxing trolls.
I did tell you about it. At the time, I wanted to do a pay-per-view roast, like it was a boxing match, and they'd said, oh yeah, Mike can make 20.
Reason and one reason only, and that is the money. He's getting paid so much money to do this, so that tells me he's getting bought. So again, it is sad that someone like Mike Tyson.
Word on the street is, Tyson didn't just leave the arena, he stormed out, dropping verbal haymakers aimed squarely at Jake Paul. According to insiders, the boxing legend tore into Jake in a heated post-fight exchange, allegedly telling him, "Stop ruining my legacy and keep my name out of your clout-chasing mouth." Classic Tyson, blunt, no filter, and never one to let disrespect slide. Now, the drama may be heading from the ring to the courtroom. Rumors suggest Tyson's camp is exploring legal action for potential contract breaches. If Jake's loose-lipped podcast comments really hinted at a fixed fight, he may have crossed a serious line, violating the unspoken rule of celebrity bouts: never talk about the script. Sources say Tyson's legal team is watching closely, ready to strike if Jake keeps testing their patience. So what does all this chaos mean for the sport? Has boxing hit a tipping point where spectacle outweighs skill, and social media clout trumps legacy? When fans can't tell if they're watching a real fight or a carefully crafted performance, how long before they tune out for good? The ring used to be where warriors were forged. Now, it's starting to feel like just another stage for viral drama.